Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Hi. It is my happy job to welcome everybody tonight to the Graduate Center on behalf of CLAGS, the Center for LGBTQ Studies here at CUNY. My name is Matt Brim. I'm the Executive Director of CLAGS. And on behalf of the organization, the board, and CUNY, I want to say thank you to everyone in this room and everyone joining us at home. Tonight, we thank other countries for putting together this program, Black and Queer. Sojourner at 30, the 30th anniversary celebration of Sojourner, Black Gay Voices in the Age of AIDS. Before I turn it over to Lynn Richardson, I just want to say thank you for coming to a CLAGS event. On the webinar at home, you can't see this room, but this room is incredible right now. Make some noise. It is a full CLAGS loves when the community comes into the center and when we go out in the community, and I can't thank you enough for being here. If you want to know more about us, you can go to clags.org. And if you want to know more about other countries, I think you'll learn how to do that. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. It's our sincere pleasure.
Thank you, Matt, for that warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here at the Graduate Center. Welcome, welcome all. My name is Lynn Richardson, and I'm proud to be your host tonight for this celebration of the 30th anniversary of this publication, Sojourner, Black Gay Voices in the Age of AIDS. We have come so far in 30 years, but the impacts of HIV/AIDS are still affecting our lives and the way we live and love even now. Just so you know, we are live streaming this event, so please take a moment to put your phones and devices on silent or vibrate. We will be taking questions and answers, and there are microphones here, here, and here. So if you would like to say something, please use the mic because we are recording this event and we'd like to hear your voice on the recording. Tonight, journey with me as we pay tribute to the many lives lost, loved, and still making waves even today as we remember this milestone publication. We will be presenting works from this journal, portions of a digital film, and there will be opportunities for questions and answers, as I said, and even a musical selection, and also a time for our reflections. We all have been affected so much by HIV and AIDS, whether we know someone, whether we are infected ourselves, our lives have changed. You could even purchase our books at the end of the program. So sit back, but don't fall asleep, as we take a trip back through this journey with our shared history around survival. Sojourner, Black Gay Voices in the Age of AIDS at 30. At this time, I'd like to introduce Alan Wright, a charter member of other countries. But before Alan comes up, that was a great little announcement for us. You may see me here and clicking there as if this is a one-man show. And part of it is, but really, this is your show. So this is for you to make it better for you in all the many ways in which you can enjoy what's to be said and done. Thank you, Alan. Please come up.
Thank you, Len. I need to redirect this, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So how is this coming across? Okay?
Good.
All right.
B. Michael Hunt. His first family called him Michael. His chosen family called him Bert. He was the managing editor of Sojourner, Black Gay Voices in the Age of AIDS, the Lambda Award-winning anthology of prose, poetry, and graphics. How's this? Much better. Bring it close. Oh, jeez. Okay.
I told you it was your show.
All right, here we go. All right. So I mentioned Bert, managing editor of Sojourner, Black Gay Voices in the Age of AIDS, the Lambda Award-winning anthology of prose, poetry, and graphics. I turned 30 this year. I asked to read Bert's introduction to Sojourner, partly because I had a hand in writing it, but also because it reminds me of something of what those days were like. Not completely, not the gnawing fear, grief, anger, and hurt fixed in my gut like a stone, but something of it. I worked with Bert on this project as, according to the book, a consulting editor. Never liked that description. Always sounded like someone sitting somewhere at a safe distance, offering his opinion about this or that. But Bert had a very specific vision for this project and never lost sight of it. Despite the frustrations and anxieties, the unforeseen setbacks, the grating drive-by flack from folks on the sidelines, the daunting expense, all the personal exhaustion, there was always the hope this book would somehow make a difference. Then too, there were the deaths. Losses coming so fast, they couldn't be properly mourned. So more than anything, everyone involved pushed to get this book finished so that its contributors, many of whom were quite ill, could at least see their work in print. Of course, there were also a few enormous personalities behind the scenes. One rather prickly contributor threatened to sue because he wasn't being paid for his work, even though Sojourner isn't a money-making venture, boo. He didn't pursue it. So no, there was no safe distance from any of it. One thing that still makes me smile, though, is what Bert added on the acknowledgments page. Alan Wright, for his all-around, just tell me what needs to be done, assistance. But what I'd forgotten, as I recently opened my old battered pages of Sojourner, was his inscription. Alan, thanks for caring enough about ourselves to work, love, be family, create family, to love towards tomorrow, toward life. Love, 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 be Michael. Introduction. Sojourner is about beginnings. For many of us, it is the beginning of our search for ways to face the day after the wakes, the funerals, the memorials of yet another friend, lover, family member. This journal is about those who are HIV positive, have AIDS, are Black, gay, HIV negative, surviving, or any combination of these and other identities, those we claim and those we don't. This project was started as an effort to revitalize an organization severely damaged by the onslaught of AIDS, HIV, death, internalized and externalized homophobia. It was conceived to marshal the energy of a collective whose membership has been and is heavily involved in every aspect of HIV/AIDS, but no longer had the energy to plan another literary reading, attend another writing workshop, board meeting, or a strategy session. This journal was to be a marker in this age of AIDS. These pages were to house memories and assist in telling our stories and those of our predecessors. These pages were to remind both the Black community and gay white community that Black faggots are infected affected by HIV/AIDS. We do not get the attention of infants born to infected mothers. We are not seen on Broadway stages, nor are we invited to address major political conventions. For the glaring absence of a black gay face, voice, presence in the national consciousness, one could surmise we had somehow been spared this scourge. We haven't. I now question whether it would have mattered if this journal achieved its original intent. Creating it has indeed aided in healing the organization and the membership. The writings and visual contributions represented here, more importantly, act as lifelines across this country and beyond. New York, London, Seattle, Cincinnati, Toronto, Oakland, Detroit, guiding us out of isolation and silence. To my knowledge, this is the only journal in the world dedicated to exploring how Black gay men are living in this age of AIDS. I managed the bulk of this project and chose the writings and visual images in consultation with genre editors as an affected member of the community. I was affected because I adamantly refused to be tested for HIV. I have since found both the compassion and sensitivity to be tested. Now, putting the knowledge of my own seropositive status in perspective, I am sure if I were to start this project today, this book would be different. Sojourner opens with a tribute to men we have named as ancestors. Most died of AIDS-related complications. Most of them were gay. Most share in the legacy of the African diaspora. Many people will find themselves or someone they know within the lines of these pages. My brothers in other countries and I can take comfort in that knowledge, as well as in knowing we have served our community well. Still, any satisfaction we might derive from this publication should encourage us further in telling the stories of those who will not see themselves or a familiar face in these or any other pages. B. Michael Hunter, Managing Editor, Spring 1993, New York.
Next up is the groundbreaking digital film by Robert Penn Productions. Give me a moment.
People make a mistake if they think the opinions of James Baldwin, because one's heard of him, are more relevant than the opinions of some black cat that you never have heard of and wouldn't speak to if you did see him. Ralph Ellison told you a long time ago, long before I did, what it was like to be the invisible man. And there's a long, long record, going back to the auction block, of what we really feel, we the blacks in this country.
June 1986. In Just Above My Head, James Baldwin said, "Our history is each other." Well, in both song and literature, there are many questions that have not been asked or answered about black men who want to be friends, lovers, or comrades in struggle. Please join me in exploring these questions as part of a new writing workshop called Other Countries, Black Gay Men Writing. Meetings begin June 14th and will be held every Saturday from 5 to 7.
Speaking now as your educator, to give you as true a version of your history as I can, since it is through your sense of your own history that you arrive at your identity. And no one has ever arrived at a sense of his own identity without it. This is why ancestors are important. We, all of us here now, are living through a certain kind of turmoil.
This is going to draw some particular types of responses because it's a depiction of this group about 20 years ago. So I think that'll make some people kind of, it'll be interesting.
We used to joke somewhat seriously with each other about the fact that all we wrote about was AIDS. And there, I felt resistant for a long time to the idea of doing a performance specifically on AIDS because I thought it was going to be all doom and gloom. And somehow or other that changed when the opportunity came, and I saw it as a real valuable opportunity to say something to a different community, not just to ourselves.
You are nothing, and you'll never be anything but me. I'm published. I'm immortal.
Although I find it very difficult to read poems about AIDS, it has to be done, and I was one of those people who found it uncomfortable to read my poetry, but because I realized that I might not be here tomorrow, that I had to stop doing it if anybody was ever going to hear it.
Because of my stature, writing, outlandish outfits, and flair for dramatics, I became a known and requested presence, operating throughout crisis as the unofficially titled funeral diva. Called upon at memorials, greetings, funerals, and wakes to speak. A needed spokesperson giving credence and testimony to men's lives, even if they were not family members or close friends. Like jobs of doctors or nurses, which require at rates of sudden and rising death tolls, quick thinking. At the funeral of poet activist Craig Harris, who worked tirelessly on the front lines against the AIDS epidemic at GMHC, but in off hours was a true diva who smoked long, thin cigarettes and drank champagne between trips to the hospital and bouts with KS and pneumonia. Like a true rebel and pioneer, he vowed in one of his poems about AIDS, I'm gonna go out like a fucking meteor.
I don't expect straight people to deal with it too well. A lot of them seem to really be happy that people are dying, and that's really their problem. I'm really hoping for gay black men to get more AIDS aware, and this poetry, I think, in a small way, should help that.
In 1988, Carrie Allen Johnson, Helen Robinson, and Terrence Taylor, among others, joined their collective creative energies to publish the first volume of Other Countries called simply Black Gay Voices. It was dedicated to the lives of James Baldwin, Richard Bruce Nugent, and Bayard Rustin, each of whom had died a year earlier. Its 115 pages captured a multitude of experiences as reflected by the black gay men who contributed their essays, poetry, short stories, plays, and illustrations to its creation. It was part of a momentum, part of an undeniable force of nature, and a call to arms by black gay men to announce our presence, our desires and passions, our hurts and triumphs, and the unconquerable resilience of our spirits.
And now, please help me welcome to Bo Lancaster and Bruce Morrow.
Hi, good evening. I'm reading from Reverend Charles Angel's AIDS and the African American PWA. It finally happened. After years of seeing friends, close and distant, buried, my news came. Or, as so many PWAs, persons with AIDS, can attest, the news finally came. At the age of 35, having lived through the do's as you please, have who you want 70s, it was not as if I get AIDS, but when. I hope that gay men health crisis volunteer work, condoms and tears, shred at AIDS in the Black community conferences will save me. Walking through the African American and Caribbean communities of New York, I didn't see people I used to see, and nobody seemed to want to discuss where they had gone. Finally, it happened. The lesions on my arm, were it a blemish or an insect bite. At 10:30 a.m., January 7th, 1987, I was diagnosed with Kaposi sarcoma. I'm shocked, I'm scared, I'm numb, but at the same time, it is not as horrible as a constant fear of AIDS. It's finally here. Like so many PWAs, I'm really able to say that the diagnosis isn't as bad as the anxiety. My eternal terror was almost unspeakable. All the questions, when, why die, how will I die, should I commit suicide, how should I commit suicide? Then finally, after a day or so, I made a decision. I reached into my own experiences and I begun to listen to all the inner voices that have kept me alive as an open gay African man born as an American in New York City. I now need the strength. I received numerous spirit-filled church services. Now more than ever, all the fiery sermons I have ever preached will now, as a preacher with AIDS, have to keep me alive. The inner guise of rich family roots deep in the Black life of New York had to support me. Defeating AIDS had meant that I would have to reach out and gather all the strength that has carried my people through second-class citizenship, segregation, Reconstruction, and far to the memories of my slave ancestors. My American roots alone are not enough. The fortitude and glory of my West African beginnings must be employed in a battle to defeat AIDS. I need all this, plus the Martin memories of grand Black gay times on Manhattan streets and Brooklyn sidewalks. While our lives will never be the same, we must never forget to laugh and have the strength to live. There comes a point in dealing with AIDS that one must take control and decide to live. I am going to live, and like every other human being, one day I shall die. But I made the choice that I would not die of AIDS. It no longer has power over me.
Hi, I'd really like to thank Robert Penn and other countries for having me read and participate in this event. And it's so amazing to see so many familiar faces I haven't seen in so long. I remember when I first came to other countries, I was a nerdy biochem guy at Columbia PNS studying heart transplants, trying to figure out how to be a writer. And I came to the writing workshop and I was like, oh, this is what writers do. And I really, really, really appreciated that and really helped me organize the anthology that I did called Shade. I'm going to read from Roy Gonzalez's poem called Reconstruction. This house is undergoing reconstruction. I've used a crucifix to torture myself like an old masochist in a movie house, hungry for pain. Guilt was the whip I used on myself. But I'm tired of beating myself. My conscience is raw. So self-hate is having an abortion, and I'm pregnant with self-acceptance. This house is undergoing reconstruction. Every time I discuss homosexuality and religion, I end up more confused than when I started. This way, I don't have to be guilty. I can be at peace with myself. No more nights cruising in the park until dawn, only to leave with less than when I came. This house is undergoing reconstruction. Even though I have AIDS, I am exercising at the gym, doing acupuncture once a week, group therapy on Wednesdays, getting up at 6 in the morning to write. When I can get out of bed, sometimes I go to the pond. But instead of cruising, I watch parents stroll their babies in a carriage, listen to the ducks quack, watch the buds on the trees become pink flower blossoms, and read jazz by Toni Morrison as if I'm looking for gold. Then I write my poem in my journal about life and the little victories I've had. This house is undergoing reconstruction. I am dancing with my clothes on, fellowship with the lesbians, praying with the saints, dancing the cakewalk all over the house, feeling my words. I'm so happy I can fly, I can cry, I could die. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Father. Can I get a witness? This house is undergoing reconstruction. It's God who paints these walls. This floor shines with his spirit. He's closed the door to temptation, but he opened up the windows to let let the sun shine in, because this house is undergoing reconstruction, so it won't be condemned. Thank you.
At this time, please welcome Stephen Forward and then Terrence Taylor.
Hi, everybody. Are you able to hear me? It's your friendly neighborhood archivist. And I say that because in 1993, I was given a copy of Kevin Magruder's essay, I Hate Basketball, from this journal. And I met Kevin's twin sister before I met Kevin. And she told me and my best friend to move to New York City. And so for that, I really love Karen. So I just want to give you that. And the reason why I chose Donald Woods's poem For All of Us, especially Joe, is because I'm on a mission to find Donald Woods's archive. And I figure I just want to tell you all of that because somebody knows something, right? But I also chose the poem because it's such a beautiful poem, because I dedicate this poem both to Donald Woods and to all of you. And with that, for all of us, especially Joe. Truth is, death draws us closer, eliminates the negatives, links us arm in arm with memories, stops us cold in the middle of a crazy day. Death flashes the moments we'd forgotten or didn't pay no mind to. The way you hugged with your arms and not your heart. The way you loved the idea of us more than the intricate reality. It's not fair the way it leaves the livers shivering in their mortality, spitting up legends, manufacturing myths that mirror our dreams and mock our reflections, turn three-quarter view. Sometimes we gotta see you again, sitting down when you really should stand, turning the other cheek, hanging back, saving it for the keyboard where you loved us best, on the printed page where we loved you back. The idea of ourselves in a marathon running race with our time bomb strapped to our gleaming bodies. You made sense of our sore spots and licked the wounds of a patient comatose by every flung gesture, lobotomized by each curse word spit. It's the pain that's not fair. You hurting, me hurting, in separate spaces. It's the love that's indirect, caught in tornadoes, rolling around us, engulfing us, but never landing, never lighting on two needy lives. Never landing on a full heart like mine, a bulbous brain blooming like yours. We wrapped in prose and sudden poetry with clear line breaks my heart that we leave here lonely, hypnotized by our vision, by our panoramic love, with heather hills and handholding. It breaks my heart that we leave here without. Thank you.
I'm frankly terrified to be here. I've spent 3 years of largely self-imposed isolation because of COVID and trying to avoid it. When friends ask me why I'm still continuing protocols, I remind them that I survived the last global pandemic that killed millions of people by listening to science and doing what it told me to do. So despite being infected, I survived until now. I have had more consequences from the medication that saved my lives, dual hip replacements, than from the actual illness. Thank God, I'm not complaining. But all of that is to say, it is not over. There are 1,500 plus cases in New York in 21, according to the GMHC, going up from the year before, largely affecting communities of color, as always. And we all need to be observant. We need to save our lives. We need to let the other MFers die if they want to. I'm reading Necropolis by Robert Vasquez Pacheco. Because at the time, that's what it was. In 30 years, we seem to have forgotten the full impact of what this was when we were first hit with it. My life is populated with the dead. They follow me down streets, huddle around me in elevators, sit behind me in movies, or next to me in cabs. Spirit men, unquiet souls, they clamor for attention, demanding remembrance. New York necropolis, monuments to dead times and dead men. I move through their city, their voices whispering, remember, 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 remember fucking in that alley. Remember those guys at that party? Remember, that's my album, bitch. Remember how you cried when I dumped you? Remember how you cried at my funeral? They clutch and murmur, please don't forget. And with each death, I feel my past diminish. Like the man in the horror film, I feel myself fading, growing lighter, more transparent, until one day, and it ends. The last comment I want to make is that I was reminded of the ending of Moby Dick, where Ishmael says, and I alone am left to tell the tale. I knew I wouldn't get through this without crying. And at the point that I recall that, the blessing about this night, about this group, this community that I'm a part of, is that none of us are alone to tell the tale, but the tale needs to still be told. That's what this book was about as it was happening. That's what this night is about 30 years later, so we don't forget. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to open up the presentation to questions and answers. Anybody have something they would like to ask or a comment they would like to make? Remember, we have the microphones on the sides here. And if you're close to the front, you can use this one. Anybody?
Um, the originating members, I would like to ask you all, what is your sense of your impact on contemporary Black gay writers?
I have a quick answer for that, which shocked the hell out of me. I work at 13. I was working with a young person named Hassan. They came out as non-binary in the last year of their employment there. They left, they were doing other things, but at one point he called me up and he said, "Do you know Roy Gonsalves?" And I said, "Yeah, I did a book cover for him years ago, back in the 80s. And he was like, "Oh my God, I've got it. I love it. But your name is misspelled. I wasn't sure it was you." We got into this conversation and I was stunned to know that not only was he fully aware of other countries and all the various people who've been a part of it and all the writing that came out of those years, I forgot it was weekly, that we were together. It was the foundation on which he and his compatriots, other Black gay artists, were building their work on. There was a show at the Whitney with Thomas Harris, where I met other people who had made short films who all said the same thing. So have no doubt that we became the people that we were trying to emulate. That at the same time, Marlon Riggs and all these other artists were putting out work that we were like so admiring of and wanted to, and there's, which is coming back now because it's being streamed. It was just the most amazing thing to know that something that to us was a very personal, individual moments in our lives left a trail. And it's definitely, absolutely being followed now by younger artists who totally understand what we did and what it meant and are building on that in wonderful new ways.
Thank you. Pat, did you want to respond?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Can all other countries' members stand?
I would like to add that it's a little strange to see people that I know in museums and libraries under glass in displays, and to be the person that graduate students have come to, and I've done a number of interviews about what was it like in those days? Who were these people? Tell us about Asado Saint. Was he really that big? And exactly, and it's fascinating to me, the fascination that has come across these years to another generation. And so I'm very happy to be available to tell whatever stories I can and to help to anchor that history.
Thank you for that. We have time for one more. Thank you, Sheila.
I was talking to Alan about how Michael Burt became a part of other countries, which is he encouraged me to come to Boston to finish school because I wasn't going to finish it down here. And then he came out to me there. But my friend Jan, who is white, who I had no intention of being friends with, but we were in class together, a film class with Bill Hansard, who Michael was very close to. She was on the platform of the university, and she was looking like she wanted to talk to me. And I was like, I don't have anything in common with this child, Little House on the Prairie, what she wanted to talk to me for. And then I said, don't be mean, Sheila. And then I talked to her. And Jan is the person who exposed me to Sweet Honey in the Rock, which then Michael was exposed to, a whole lot of Black gay writers and stuff. And she gave me In the Life, a Black gay anthology. And that is the book that Michael left me in Boston, came to New York and made a connection. So it's like, you just never know how you'll be impacted. He was impacted by Joseph Beam and all the guys and stuff. And then all of y'all did they did so many other things besides write. Not that writing isn't important, but they did so many other things. And I just want to say, like, they were impacted and then we were impacted. And I'm not a Black gay writer, but I was impacted by other countries.
Thank you very much, Sheila. And thank you to all of the questions and comments. Now I would like to introduce a man of many talents wearing many hats. I'd like to allow our own Robert Penn to say a few words.
Microphone. I want to thank Tim and West for my attire this evening. Some of you know, I am. Every one of them made a big impact on LGBTQ community. And that's why I love this t-shirt. I'm so glad that Timon designed it. So today is a pretty good day. It was sunny. We're together for the winter solstice again. Thanks to our host, CLAGS, the Center for Lesbian and Gay Studies. We find ourselves in a very comfortable venue. AIDS is not constantly in the news. The fear of catching HIV from the air and utensils has faded from memory, and effective antiretroviral treatments are widely available at a price. The climate when other countries sent out the call for submissions for its second anthology that we're celebrating today was very different. AIDS was ravaging queer communities of brothers, but the press, politicians, and many activists denied, downplayed, and/or failed to perform due diligence of HIV/AIDS cases among Americans other than white gay males. To quote Linda Villarosa's June 2017 New York Times Magazine article, America's hidden HIV epidemic, quote, history marks the beginning of the AIDS epidemic as June 5th, 2000, sorry, I wish it was 2000. History marks the beginning of the AIDS epidemic as June 5th, 1981, when an issue of the CDC's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, the authoritative voice of the agency, highlighted 5 cases of pneumocystis pneumonia, PCP, in previously healthy men in Los Angeles. Healthy people do not contract a disease like PCP, which had been largely confined until then to patients on medication to suppress their immune systems for an organ transplant or cancer patients on chemotherapy. Though not stated explicitly, the language of the report, by omitting race, implied that its 5 young men, all active homosexuals, were white, which they were. But there were 2 more documented cases not mentioned in the notice, and these 6th and 7th cases were Black. One of them a gay African American, the other a heterosexual Haitian. That's the end of the quote. My point is that other countries called for submissions at a time when the medical community had no idea how to handle the new disease and failed to alert the public to early cases among Blacks. As a result, the possibility of AIDS-related illness and death among Blacks was minimized or explained away. He must have slept with a white gay man. I heard that many times. Our voices were not generally heard or read. However, some of us had seroconverted in the throes of lovemaking brother to brother. Some reported flu-like symptoms and may have been misdiagnosed. Others grew gravely ill. Many were shunned, and we were dying. From the moment our collective other countries released the call for submissions, Other Countries Volume 2 provided support and validation to those of us who have lost many validation and support to those of us who lost many lovers and loved ones to AIDS, especially before 1996, when the FDA approved the first effective treatments. Sojourner, Black Gay Voices in the Age of AIDS, affirms lives of our deceased and our survivors. This volume documents Black, gay, or queer creative response and democratizes the historical record. I'm so grateful we have gathered today to celebrate the original printing 30 years ago and ask some questions about how it was during the second Q&A, because it was really very different. Thank you all for being here. What a wonderful turnout. It's an honor to be here.
At this time, let's continue our story with the next section of Robert Penn's courageous digital film. Give me a minute.
A lot of working in the workshop in terms of both the process and the people is keeping that awareness on the surface, but also making it somehow something that can be used practically in life. It's not going, oh my God, we're gonna die. It's going, okay, we're gonna die, we're alive now. We have to take advantage of this time.
Summer 1986, I snuck to my first lesbian and gay pride parade. I had just moved to New York and was living with my friend's mom and her 3 children in a Harlem tenement. The youngest was an 8-year-old named Naima with long black braids and brown skin, the kind of girl you see staring from pages of children's books. Next was Jackie, a preteen athlete whose room was decorated by statues and trophies from races she'd won. And last was Perry, their mysterious absentee older brother who appeared only after work on Friday nights to don one fingerless black glove and go dancing at Manhattan's infamous club, the Paradise Garage.
B. Michael Hunter, Bert, except in print, could compete on all significant levels. Face, brains, wit, body, talent, black consciousness, sensuality, readiness to work, loyalty to family and friends, community commitment, staying out, remaining proud, and hair.
I'm very much concerned with the issue of living as opposed to the issue of dying of either AIDS or any other illness or pathos that we as Black people and Black gay people have to be confronted with. So I think that I know for me it has helped me be a little bit more centered, a little bit more grounded.
Sing, boys, like one sweet voice. We believe. We believe. We believe.
The man seated at the end of the row of seats next to where we stood heard my blush. He glanced over at my hand, lightly grazing the material of my conquest trousers. I glared at him where he sat. And saw jealousy clenching little fists behind his eyes. He was as gay as I am and as desirous. I noticed then that every homosexual on the train had looked up at almost the exact same moment.
This is like a whole fucking different Venus magazine. This is like 10 ways to get out the life if you want to get out, and hundreds of them were delivered to the LGBT community. And if there has ever been a time when Black gay voices need to articulate themselves and project them into the world, published by an ex-lesbian woman.
All I have to say is wow. I can say wow and then sit down, because just being here tonight, the energy in this room is incredible. Seeing people, it's like special going on. I joined other countries in 1986. After I come back from 2 years in the Peace Corps, I came back to New York that was a confusing place. And I swear to God that those Saturdays were the difference between life and insanity for many of us who were trying to figure out how, as young Black gay men, we found a future for ourselves in a world that wasn't offering us much of a future at that point. And some miraculous things happened in that workshop, and so it's a blessing to have been part of it. I'm very grateful.
You know, we're working together, speaking about our lives, our own experience, in no uncertain terms, speaking the truth. And that process is as important as the product.
Yes. And now I'd like to bring back Stephen forward and introduce Sheila Mabry, cousin of B. Michael Hunter, the managing editor of this journal. Stephen.
Howdy. Can I get a howdy? Okay, I just wanted to know if you were still awake. Wow, I think this might be the 5th reference to B. Michael Hunter. And I'm so happy to have chosen Untitled News as my second poem. And I chose it because of a word I heard, I think it was Robert saying in the film that he was sensual. And I think that when we talk about the AIDS epidemic and we need joy and light and all these other stuff as well. And so this particular poem brought that home for me. So I want to share with you Untitled News. Every time a brother I know dies from AIDS, my dick gets hard. Now I know that might seem like a contradiction, but it's not. I mean, my temperature rises, my blood boils, and my dick gets hard. Actually, it only gets hard if I knew the brother was sex positive and gay. Well, gay. It's sort of an anger thing I could have and will continue to march in the streets during gay pride, African American or Puerto Rican Day parades, and any time to stop the church. O'Connor says, don't fuck, and we say, fuck you. But when my brothers transcend this life, their flesh and bones turn first to ashes and then to dust, I feel it's my moral duty to testify on their behalf. I get spiritual. I want to start signifying like Angelou. I hate to lose things. It's metaphysical, political, mental, psychological, demographical kind of thing. You know, not a regular heart. Or maybe it is a regular heart. I become more like my name, Hunter, than ever before, hunting down trade. My nose reels in the scent like a male dog in the pursuit of any bitch in heat. I sniff any and all gluteus maximi derrieres, behinds or booties. I sniff, sniff. I smell ass. I lick and poke, all in an effort to claim my right to do the nasty the way I want to, the way they did. Like the time Elle had gone, and I'm only using initials to protect the innocent. You know, the boy's lover who didn't know what was going on. Well, when I heard Elle had passed away, I went hunting. Because Elle was a Fenway creeping bathhouse, no, you can't spend the night versatile diva. And I did the best I could in his honor. I went to the closest X-rated movie house I could find and carried on. And when M left, shit, that was a challenge. Because he was a bi-coastal international, show me yours, I'll show you mine kind of guy. Well, I had to buy a plane ticket. The point was, you couldn't do it in the city where you lived. And I don't know their sexual histories. Well, I do a little solo job. Now you can sit and judge and laugh if you want to. We all got to do what's right for ourselves. And honey, I'm not just like this when they die. You see, I was sitting at an ice cream store on West 4th when my boyfriend, lover, friend, relationship for that week told me right in the middle of my double fudge mint chocolate chip sundae that he found out that day he was positive. He then proceeded to tell me, and I quote, I'm going to die. Shit. We finished those Sundays, paid the bill, and I marched that man right back up to my apartment, straight into my bedroom. I ripped off both my clothes and his, leaned back, threw my legs in the air, grabbed the lube, and tore open the condom, slapped that bad boy on his dick, and demanded to be fucked. You're gonna fuck me. You're gonna fuck me. It was not about roles. I wanted to prove to both of us that we didn't have to give up the lust that lives between lovers. I had to make sure he could see my face and look into my eyes, see my love. I needed to be sure he could hear me whisper, yeah, fuck me, fuck me, fuck me. You see, ring, ring, excuse me, someone's on the phone. Hello? E, what is it? You just got over a bout of PCP? Thank you.
We're on a timeline, y'all. Okay. So I picked this piece, I'm Going Out Like a Fucking Meteor by Craig G. Harris, because I loved Craig and because he was all things writer, advocate, infected, affected, lover, and community leader in so many ways. And I just, a community member connected. So this is why. So It's very long, so I'm gonna read just snatches from it. So go buy the book. I'm going out like a fucking meteor. Quote by Audre Lorde, I want to live to the rest of my life, however long or short, with as much sweetness as I can decently manage, loving all the people I love and doing as much as I can of the work I still have to do. I'm going to write fire until it comes out of my ears, my eyes, my nose holes, everywhere. Until it's every breath I breathe, I'm going to go out like a fucking meteor. Fred goes on to kind of talk about how he's managing being positive and sick and work and all that stuff. But he gets to a part where he says in this, I could bitch and complain. I could be compressed. I could be depressed and withdrawn. But what good would either do? So I sit and I contemplate my situation. I'm one of the lucky ones. No matter how unfortunate my situation may seem, I know that I'm a privileged nigga. I know this because not only have I worked every day of my life, but for the last 7 years, I have worked in various positions in HIV prevention. I have a good job. I have health insurance coverage. I have access to the most updated medical information and a stellar medical team. In no way could I compare my case to Evelyn, a former client. I met Evelyn shortly after returning to New York in the spring of 1988 to assume the position of executive director of the Minority Task Force on AIDS. Evelyn had been diagnosed with lupus in addition to HIV disease. Her drug habit was one she had great difficulty shaking. She was only somewhat literate and dependent on social services as her man had left her to marry another woman. She had a 5-year-old son, but couldn't depend on the father for childcare because his wife was afraid that the young boy would infect her infant. Bureaucratic systems both baffled and intimidated Evelyn. Through Evelyn, I gained my first real insights into the horrors of the American healthcare and social services systems. It is not that I was totally naive until this time. Like most progressive activists, I had a conceptual handle on such injustices, but had really never encountered them firsthand. I had an opportunity the day that Evelyn came into my office sobbing, interrupted my work on a grant proposal, which, if approved, would allow the task force to increase its overstressed staff of 2. Evelyn explained to me that she had no money, her food stamps had been cut off, and no one at the local welfare office would explain why. I called the welfare office, explained my position, and politely requested to speak with a manager. That request was initially denied by the most surly public servant I have ever encountered. She told me that Evelyn's food stamps had been discontinued because she was too stupid to know how to fill out the forms. I informed her that I would be happy to send someone to the office to pick up the forms. I would then complete the forms for Evelyn and have them returned by the close of business. The clerk told me that they didn't operate that way, that I couldn't push through the process, and that Evelyn would have to make an appointment later in the month to pick up the forms. I realized it was now time for me to demonstrate my trilingual roots. I am fluent in Anglo, Afro, and Homo. Look, girlfriend, I want her. I run this motherfucking agency, and I would strongly suggest that you go find someone in a comparable position at yours quick, fast, and in a hurry, because you're dancing on my last damn nerve, and your office is only 9 blocks from mine. I will not hesitate to jump into a gypsy cabin before you can blink, suck your teeth, roll your eyes in head. I'll be whipping your ass all up and down 125th Street. Within moments, the supervisor was on the line, and the situation was corrected. Nonetheless, when I returned home that evening, I cried at the day's events, knowing that there were a lot more Evelyn's out there, and more often than not, they do not have advocates for their cause. No, I'm not in denial. I just told you I'm drinking scotch, eating chocolates, and I have AIDS. That's not denial, George. I firmly believe that every individual has the right to select a support group that works for him or her. Mine, for the moment, happened to consist of Benson and Hedges, menthol lights, 12-year-old whiskey, and expensive confections. Without them, I don't know how I would have made it through the first night. With them, I managed to call my brother, some cousins, and assorted friends, realizing that each time I'd have to assist them in dealing with their issues before they could assist me in dealing with mine. Disclosure is a very tedious task. After completing the calls, I turned on the television, set hoping to find something other than coverage of the war in the Middle East, which our country had entered into 13 days earlier. I had no idea that I would find President George Bush delivering his State of the Union address. It seemed as though he talked forever about the wonderful job the troops were doing in Kuwait. He insisted upon referring to Saddam Hussein only by his first name, which he consistently mispronounced. He tried to assure us that adding to the devastation in the Persian Gulf was what the United States what's made the United States a great country, the greatest. President Bush dedicated only a short portion of his speech to domestic issues. Somehow he managed to work AIDS, illiteracy, and homelessness into one sentence and indicated that the government really couldn't solve these problems. He did not, however, make the logical leap proposing combined efforts on the part of the government, private industry, philanthropic societies, etc. Wizard political electrician that he is, Bush suggested that U.S. citizens become 1,000 points of light to tackle these dark, despairing social ills and recommended that each American visit a person with AIDS. I was too plucked to even get angry. I just turned off the set thinking to myself, darling, the last thing I need right now is company. What I could really use is the assurance that you are doing everything within your means to ensure that Anthony Fauci and his buddies at NIH are getting all the perks they desire. I don't care what it takes. Keep that buckaroo happy and hovering over a petri dish. And the last part I'll read is, sorry. Okay, here we go. I'm not waiting for a cure. I'm not looking for a miracle. I am not resisting the inevitable. I will die. I will die much sooner than I would like to accept, and there is little I can do about this fact. Kubler-Ross can call that acceptance if she wants, but in doing so, I believe she minimizes one's will to fight. It is precisely because I know I will die that I work even more diligently for the causes I believe in. It is within this framework that I make decisions about my medical care. It is within this framework that I have made decisions to increase my activities or lessen my involvement in certain organizations. It is within this framework that I continue to plan and conduct HIV prevention programs for African American gay men. It is this philosophy that has caused me to renew work on a manuscript of poetry and fiction I began more than 2 years ago. It is all about the quality of life I have found. My quality of life is a control issue. I refuse to be controlled by a daily regimen of oral medications and radiation therapy, controlled by weekly chemotherapy treatments, controlled by the increasing numbers of side effects, fatigue or depression, medical bills or reimbursement checks. I refuse to be controlled by limitations imposed on me by my race and ethnicity, class, sexual orientation, and health. I have made a commitment to relinquish control only as a last resort. I want to live the rest of my life with an energy that ignites and irritates, burns and bubbles, soothes and inspires until it bursts from the atmosphere, dissipating into the cosmos.
We are nearing the end of this program. Please welcome Steve Langley, who will sing to our hearts, minds, and souls.
Do what you wanna do, let me hear you. Do what you wanna do, let me hear you say it. Do what you wanna do, sing it to the folks in the virtual video. Do what you wanna do, sounds good. Do what you wanna do. All right, you got your line. So when I point you to you, you'll know what to do, right? All right, we'll see what happens. We're gonna make it up as we go along. That's what I do. Do this. You. Snap your fingers. You. Can somebody say that? You. I hear you. Come on, then. You. Here we go. Listen to this, and you. So many roles for you to play just to stay in the game. You follow the leader or dance to a tune with a different beat. Mother, father, a daughter or son, they're all one and the same. Then you discover you played them so long you don't know your name. So after learning a predetermined roles they set for you, now's the time to realize you can do what you want to do. Let me hear you say, that's it, say, but do what you want to do. You can keep it going, say, do what you want to do. You can do what you want to do. Do what you want. Do what you want to do. Point to somebody, say, do what you want to do. Point to somebody, say, do what you want to do. You might as well stand up and clap your hands, do what you want to do. You can do what you want to do. You can do what you want to do. You can hang. Keep it going now. Do what you want.
Sit down for a second. Yeah. We at this time would like to open up the floor for our final question and answer. The mics are there, mics are here. Any last comments, questions before we try to wrap this up? Hi, George.
Oh,
Please, yes.
I'm William Jones, and I produced a book reading of other countries in July of 1988 in Oakland with Steve Langley and Colin Robinson. And I'd like to know if I could get a quick picture with the two of us before he leaves. That's it.
Sure. You have a fan, Steve. Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment.
George.
This I'm mad at you, Sheila. Because I haven't read that in a long time. I haven't read that in a long time. I call myself other countries adjacent. I got to other countries or got to New York from DC because of Colin Robinson. And when I first came, some of you know that other countries was doing an event at Midtown 43, and I choreographed a piece of Arrow Park as well as Colin's piece, and I danced almost naked, but that was beside the point. But that's how I was first introduced, because Colin was in DC, and that's how I met him. But it changed my life. It really did change my life, coming back to New York and being associated with all of you. And I just wanted to say, to talk about Colin, because he was so instrumental in making sure shit got done. And I could find some other ways to say it, but it was really important that he made sure that we were never erased, that we were always seen, and that stuff got done. And that was in work, that was in his social life and all the other stuff. So I wanted to say that tonight, and also thank the brothers here and everybody else for participating, because it really was important for me to be here tonight, but also to remember those people and the things that we don't always talk about. I've been contacted several times in the last 5 years to talk about either Asato and his work, and primarily by white gay men, and then and about Craig, about the book and the book that he did. And I was honored to have shared that with folks. I just want to thank again other countries, because sometimes, as we heard earlier, we don't always know the impact we have, especially when people ask about us when we're not there. When you leave the room, more stuff is said than we know about. And this impact of other countries is monumental. I just want to say that. Thank you.
First thing is that, Steve, I think it would be great for you to share with us some background of that song, because I think it would be really impactful for the audience who may not know the history of what we just all engaged in. And I also would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the work of Lynn, Kevin, Robert, Sir, and Steve, who have put so much care into what is happening right now. Yes. Zoom meetings, the program, so much work went into what is happening here. And so I just wanted to make sure, because sometimes it's so clean and smooth that we forget that it's work. And so I wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged. So thank you, brothers. And so, yes, so Steve, if you might share with us some background on the piece we just worked at.
So Colin Robinson invited me to the Bay Area, and that's where I met Marlon Riggs. Marlon had a Black gay group there, and we did a couple of readings that the brother just mentioned at a couple of bars in the Bay Area. And Marlon said that he was working on a film called Tongues Untied. And, people say that they're going to do things, but until it actually happens, okay, I said, okay. So I sang, do what you want to do. And I did a few poems, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to come to DC. And I was like, okay, yeah. So he did come to DC, and he called me, said, I'm in town, and I'm ready to shoot your poems and your song. And so he did, and that's how it happened.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank, Kevin.
I want to acknowledge Kat Cheers, who just commented that for me tonight, the origination of it starts with a workshop, a 4-part workshop that she did about other countries in the summer of 2022. And when I learned about it, at first I had an attitude, because it's like, well, who is this talking about other countries without talking to us? The workshop continues. We do continue to meet second and fourth Saturday. And then I, kind of got a little more humility, and I decided to attend. And it was fascinating because it was mainly people, a fair amount of people probably in their 20s and 30s. And the same thing that several people have said, they were very interested in what we had done. And Robert attended all of the workshops. I think I attended 2 of them. And we were able to, I'm a historian, and there's one thing to read about it, but being able to talk to people who are involved in it, there's a lot that is not on a page. And so for me, I have an understanding that what we've done is significant, but sometimes when you're in it, you don't realize it until people remind you of that. And that's what Kat, and the other thing about it, it wasn't just, let's talk about other countries. She was prepared and went deep into the work. So it wasn't like a peripheral view of it. And I really appreciated that. In the last workshop, we talked about, I'm in Ohio now, they talked about, well, maybe doing something face-to-face in New York. And out of that, a year ago, right around this time, Kat hosted an event in like around NYU, Lower Manhattan, because we traditionally did open readings during the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So that's why we were looking at this date. Then with this year coming on, I believe that anniversaries are important times to mark just for what you've experienced, that everybody has a story to tell and nobody knows all of them. And so the more we can find opportunities to share, they're really important. So Kat, I really appreciate what you got started, at least for me. Thank you.
I thank everyone. So did you want to make a comment? Okay, sure, quick.
So thank you so much for this programming, for the art. You all paved the way for a younger generation of queer folks, of POC folks to have a voice. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. And so I would like to know how we can, people who are program creators, who are art creators, how do we honor, respect, and carry on your legacy as we create things into the future?
I'd say maybe. Best homage is to do what you do, is do it as well as you can, based on that foundation. Doesn't necessarily have to reflect it. But what we were doing was expressing what was inside that reflected what was happening at the time. And the truest homage to the past is to do exactly that again, to look around you now, to see what it is that you see that others don't see, and all of you to express that. And I'm part of a collection now by Jordan Peele that has filled with these Black horror writers that were a community that was only just a glimmer 20 years ago when Brandon Massey did his first collection. And that grew over 20 years into a massive community. And it's more than that. It's opened up the door to so many voices and so many new things and so many new revelations and so many new insights. That's what you do. Take your voice, build on that, because that's what we were doing. Don't look to us and imitate, innovate.
This has been a journey for us, and many of us have been touched. If someone would like to share a thought, a moment, a sentiment, now is the time before we bring this presentation to a close. We like this. We need this and hope to come together again next year in the spring. Would anybody like to just share something that may be pressing on your heart or your mind? Well, I have something. It is not so often that a small group of dynamic, hungry, Black gay men can come together to celebrate their unique place in the world. That group would be Other Countries some 3 decades ago in 1986. It is also not so often that a group like Other Countries can meet and take note of how far we have come some 37 years now, still fighting against the forces that ravage our communities and our vision of life, love, and justice. That too would be Other Countries today, still relevant, still living, still writing and celebrating. Our legacy is now. I want to thank all of you for coming out and supporting us. I especially would like to thank James Harris and Matt Brim of CLAGS, the Center for Lesbian and Gay Studies, for their tireless support here at the Graduate Center. I thank all of the organizers and readers for their participation and energy. And most of all, I thank all of you for bearing witness to what must be seen, heard, lived, and loved. That is, our shared and common human and humane existence. Thank you. And don't forget, Kevin is selling books. Good night. That's going to happen. Okay, so we can do it here.
Yeah.
Readers.
Readers are organizers. Come on.
Have people finish the food because we want.
Yeah, yeah. Please don't forget, we have snacks and refreshments to the side. And don't forget to buy books. Who now? Other countries.
If you ever did it, then I can come. Every time I just look. Hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Matt.